evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of Wednesday, March 29th. We are coming to you tonight from the school committee room in the Savage Center. In attendance this evening, we have 4 of our members. Not in attendance this evening is Dr. Joan Giblin. At this time, I'm going to ask everybody in attendance to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so first order of business is approval of minutes. In your packets, you have 2 sets of minutes. We have our business minutes from March 22nd meeting, and we also have the executive session minutes from March 22nd. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes? Motion to approve. Moved by Teresa. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by David. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so 4-0. Okay, moving on to correspondence. Dr. Thompson, do we have any correspondence this evening?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Great. And the next order of business is warrants. We also do not have any warrants. I did not sign any warrants this week. Okay, so next order of business is tonight is our fiscal year 24 budget hearing. We will begin that now. So Ms. Sheridan has a presentation for us.
Here we have the PowerPoint, and we're going to be doing the FY24 budget. Go to the next page. So the FY24 budget for FY24 is $54,824,886, and this is the general fund budget. Okay. If you go to the next slide. So the general fund budget increase for this year is $2,023,853. 3.83% of which is the increase, of which 55.37% of the FY24 Chapter 70A increase covers that. The override pledge, the override pledge portion is $1,848,036, and that's the 3.5%. And then there's an additional amount of increases that we were unable to absorb in the budget, staying within that override pledge of the 3.5%, and that is $175,817, and that's a 0.33%. The remaining Chapter 78 increase for this year totals $1,630,963. So 44.63% of the Chapter 78 increase is available for the town. All right. If we go to the next slide, we're going to analyze the budget. So here, as we normally do, we're looking at the general fund budget by the Department of Education function codes. And if we review this budget, you can see that instructional services continues to be the largest portion of the budget. So it's $44,598,144, which is 81.35% of that budget. So this is where you have really all your instructional services sections, and that is where the largest portion of your budget should be. Other school services is second, and that's $4,518,073, which is 8.24% of this budget, and that includes your medical and health services, your athletics, your student transportation, your food service, your other student activities, and your school resource officer. Programs with other school districts, that's comes in third, and that's $3,348,936, and that's 6.11% of this budget, and that's the out-of-district placements for special education students. That normally is higher, but because we've used an awful lot of circuit breaker, and we've also increased the budget offset from the Special Education Reserve Fund, that is why that is now at a lower percentage of the total budget. All right. District leadership and administration, which includes your school committee costs, superintendent area, and the finance administration area, that is $1,547,405, and is 2.82% of this budget. Operation and maintenance of plant is $736,427, and that's 1.34%, which is much smaller with the movement of the facilities to townwide. And this includes the utilities, the telephone only, the equipment for the school, and network and communications. And the equipment for the school this year is really only some new classrooms that we have to have. We limited that to only new classrooms this year for that section. The next one. Benefit and fixed charges is 0.12%, and that's for sick leave and vacation for your retirees and your terminated employees, and also some employer retirement contributions. And finally, community services is 8,500, 0.02%, and that's the Metro West Youth Behavioral Survey and the Minds Matter Interface Referral Helpline. All right, if we go to the next one. Here you can really see it with the chart of how big a piece of the pie the instructional services is. And you'll also see the different sections there. If you go to the next slide. The next slide is, we're analyzing it with payroll and expenditures. And you can see that salaries are 86% of this budget. So this is a very large salary budget. The payroll is, that's really large amount of the budget. And just to give you an idea of how payroll heavy this budget is, when we began building this budget, the biggest challenge was level staffing from FY23 to FY24 was 3.3% of the yearly target of the 3.5% increase, and that was just level service, so that's payroll. And 2.91% was level staffing with the COLA for unsettled contracts, and 0.39% was a column transfer to those who upped their education. So it's a very tough, it was a very tough budget year for us, and this kind of shows you that when you're starting off with a 3.3% and you haven't even begun to build your budget, and that's a tough budget, all right? So here on slide 8, let's analyze the budget. You see the largest percentage is payroll. Is instructional services. It continues to be the largest piece of the pie, even for salaries. So that's 89% of the salaries. Other school services, 7%. District leadership and administration is 3%, with the operation of plants is a 1%. So again, instructional services is really the largest part of the budget in all areas, expenditures and payroll. Okay. Now I'm going to break down the budget a little more. And again, I want to remind you, because later on when we get into further, this is just the general fund budget, all right? Because we have some other pots of money, and we're going to give you a little idea of how it changes with the other pots of money, okay? So the budget by the category, at the top, you see of all the expenditures and payroll, general education is 64% of this budget. Special education is 32%. And that's, again, it's 32% in this area because we use so much circuit breaker and special education reserve. And then there's some other funding sources that we are using to offset this budget this year. So you'll see that later on in the slides. English language learners is 4%. And then if you look at the payroll, general education is 67%, special education is 29%, and EL 4%. I'm going to get into some of the budget challenges that we have this year. You go to the next slide. So we've been talking about this all year, but special education, transportation, and out-of-district tuition have been a real challenge for us this year. The special education transportation continues to rise. The increases went from 141 in the last 3 years, from 141 to 185 to 203 number of students that we transported with special education. We have had various discussions on this. The supply chain issues have been challenging for us, as well as the increase in the outside contract services due to transporting these students. So the outside contracted services, which can cost upwards of $400 a day, have been things that we've had to deal with this year because we haven't had the vans coming in and we've had an increase in special education transportation. The out-of-district special education students also continue to rise. So in 3 years, it went from 60 to 68 to 79 students. This slide 12. The changes in our population, another reason that we've been talking about this all year. They're driving our budget with the increased student needs. If you see the percentage of the population increases with the high need students. So if you look at this slide, you can see that even if you look at the lines going up, you can see your English language learners going up, your high need students going up, your students with disability. And these are driving the Chapter 78 increases that you're getting. So in particular, that high needs and the low income area is what you're seeing, the reasoning behind your Chapter 70 increasing. And we've had very large increases for 2 years in a row. And you'll see that when we get to one of the future slides. The next one, the EL and the special education students, they continue to rise as well. The numbers climbing. Due to these population changes, the district experienced increased student needs. The school committee had to approve new positions during the year to meet the needs of our EL and our special education population. These are mandated by law, so we have had to add some positions during the year for the EL and the special education. Some of the new staff requests this year. So the district new staffing request, it's important to note that when we started this budget, we started with 32 new staff requests. And superintendent can attest to the fact that they were positions that were well needed in the district. We are now down to 10 full-time equivalencies. In special education, there's 3 special education teachers, and there's an adjustment counselor of 0.2, with the 3.2 full-time equivalencies and 3 benefited. The English learners, there's 2 EL teachers, and there's an EL coordinator that was previously grant funded, and that grant funding dried up, and that's a 0.5 full-time equivalency, 2.5 full-time equivalencies, 2 benefited. In the general education other needs area, there's a preschool administrator, which is a 1.0 full-time equivalency, elementary student support specialist, a 1.0 full-time equivalency, 2 interventionists, and then that was previously grant funded again. The grant funding has dried up. And then a nurse at the LMPA, again, previously grant funded, and that's a 1.0. So there's 5 benefited. And another important to note is the preschool administrator and the nurse at the LMPA. That is a special education program, all right? So they are in the general ed category, but it is a special education program.
Karen, before you go on, could you or Dr. Thompson remind us, the 3 special ed teachers, where are they? The 3 FTEs for special ed, what schools?
One is at the Oldham.
Yep.
Try to remember.
Yeah.
I have it in my office. But
Yeah.
I don't remember.
One of those is at the Oldham. I think there might be another program you might need to, but no, one is at the Oldham, one is at the Willett.
Coakley?
Is it Coakley the third one?
I think it was reading specialist, special education, reading specialist at the middle school.
Right, one is at the, one's Coakley, one's Willett, and one is
Oldham.
the Oldham.
And the adjustment counselor, that is the Coakley?
I thought that was Cleveland.
Or we were not able to get the Coakley one? Yes, we were not able to get the Coakley.
We were not able to
which
get
is
the
on another
Coakley
slide.
one.
Okay,
Right.
that's Cleveland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to slide 16. So again, as we talked about, this has been a really challenging budget. We started with 32 staff requests, and so 22 we were unable to get into this budget. So the staff requests that were unable to get into this budget in special education teachers at the middle school, high school in Callahan, that was 4 full-time equivalencies. Special education, OT, and SLP at the Willett, 1.4. BCBA at the Callahan is 0.5. 6.3 paraprofessionals. Assistant transportation director of a 0.4. And adjustment counselor at the middle school in the Balls is 1.1. So in special education, that was 13.7. Full-time equivalencies, 15 benefited positions. English learners, an EL administrative assistant of a 0.4 full-time equivalency, that would not be a benefited position, and that was unable to get into the general fund budget. General education, the elementary HPE, health and phys ed teacher, a 1.3, and that was throughout the different elementaries, a little bit added to each of the elementaries. Teachers at the Balch Middle School, High School, and Oldham was 4 full-time equivalencies. A middle school administrative assistant of a 0.6 full-time equivalency, and a middle school computer science teacher, a 1.0. So 6.9 full-time equivalencies, 7 benefited. So unfortunately, these were unable to be funded. Now we're going to get into funding the budget. So with the revolving funds, so the district collects fees to offset the cost for the district. And revolving funds, we continually monitor, evaluate, and effectively use our revolving funds. And this year we are increasing our budget offsets in the amount of $1,376,516. So it's up 34% over last year. And in 2 years, we've increased it by $2,106,908. So that's a really large increase in using the revolving funds. We do have to monitor them to make sure that they're sustainable. So in the transportation area, so we lowered the transportation budget offset for the school, and that is to 200. It was previously 300,000, but in the past year they had gotten some revenue replacement from the town from some opera funds, and that had dried up. So I did not feel that that revolving fund could sustain the 200,000. So that's the one that was lowered. The preschool tuition revolving account, that is $219,771. That is up a little, and actually this is an area due to the fact that your preschool classes are increasing. So we may be able to add some more to this revolving fund as we get more revenue in. So that is one that I'm going to be watching in the opposite way. We may be able to add some expenditures to this particular area. Currently, the preschool is budgeted to be covering 4.8 paraprofessionals and 1 teacher. Athletics is at 100,000. We're just watching that one. That seems to be going to be okay. Drama and music is together is 34,000. That's up about 4,000 from last year, but their revolving funds seem like they're okay to sustain that. The biggest jump, circuit breaker. So the circuit breaker is up to $4,364,047, an increase of $1,209,047 over last year. So what we want to make sure we note is that we have been trying to keep a full year circuit breaker. That's how we've been trying to budget, because you have 2 years to spend your circuit breaker. We were trying to keep the 1 full year, be able to use that in the following year. We're not at that point right now. So we're going to have to hope that we can gradually get back up to that point where we liked that one healthy 1 year of circuit breaker. But this year was the year that we felt like we really needed to increase the circuit breaker, and so we did, but we will be watching that. The other thing is we're in the process right now of applying for extraordinary relief. I am hopeful that we may qualify for that. We should know probably in the next couple of weeks. So if we do get that, that should help us. The Special Education Stabilization Fund, we originally had about $850,000 in there. There was $300,000 that is budgeted for FY23. That the way that the Special Education Stabilization works is it would have to come to the school committee and the town to be voted to use that money. The school committee votes to put the money, to transfer the money into the account, but you need both sides to utilize that funds. So we may be coming to school committee in the town this year. We have $300,000 budgeted on that. So the FY24 offset is $550,000, which if we do use that $300,000 and then this $550,000, that will deplete the entire Special Education Reserve Fund. The hope is that we're able to keep a little bit of that in this fund, but again, in this tough budget season, this is what we made the decision to do. We're gonna move on to circuit breaker. So the circuit breaker, this slide shows the circuit breaker from FY20 to the estimate for FY24. So as the out-of-district tuition costs rise, as do the circuit breaker reimbursements. So please note and be mindful to keep some reserves. We're gonna keep some reserves in this fund because I guess we should all agree that it's not really unexpected anymore. It seems to be anticipated that we're going to be getting special education expenditures in. So you do not want to deplete all of your reserves in circuit breaker as well as the special education reserve. So the FY24 estimate was made on the following assumptions, and that is the current student count, the current foundation, and 75% reimbursement, which the Department of Ed has been indicating that they think it will be 75% reimbursement. So again, possible extraordinary relief, possible assistance from the state. There's a lot of unknowns right now. So on this slide, what I did was I did an estimate if we used all of our budgeted circuit breaker, and then we have the estimates of the circuit breaker reimbursement that we would have. So you'll see at the end of FY24, we'd be left with $1,794,247. So we're getting down there in the circuit breaker balance that we have. In previous year, just to give you an idea, we had about $2.8 million in it. So we're down about $1 million. So we really want to be watching that. The other thing I wanted to mention in this is the school districts, the reimbursement is for expenditures for special ed costs that are more than 4 times the statewide foundation budget. And by law, the districts are reimbursed up to 75% of that, subject to appropriation. And the foundation per student that must be met before you get any of this is $51,722 for FY24. All right. The other thing is there are some special indicators, and students that fall into abandoned, homeless, or the state board, we get 100% reimbursement for them after the foundation. So again, the extraordinary relief, just to give you an idea of how that works, the special education claim has to exceed 125% of the previous year's claim. All right. So again, I'm pretty hopeful that we may get some of that extraordinary relief. On the next slide. So the Medicaid reimbursements, again, we've been watching the Medicaid reimbursements because they have been trending upward. So FY22, there was a large jump to the changes in the Medicaid program in the previous years. They had previous years amendments in there. So last year we got $578,991, which was wonderful for the town. And in FY23, we seem to be on track to have more revenue than we did in FY21, but not as much revenue as we had in FY22. So right now we have 3 of the 4 quarters in, and we have 237,730. So there's potential to be between 330 and 350,000 revenue in the Medicaid for this year. Again, the school handles all the Medicaid, but the funds are deposited into the town accounts. They are not part of the revolving fund. All right, going to the next grant. Grants, Norwood Public Schools continues to search for grant opportunities in federal, state, and private. On FY21 and FY22, you'll see in red the COVID, that's the COVID years. And you can see the red is the amount of funding that we got from the COVID grants. And you'll see we had an awful lot more money in 21 and 22 due to those COVID grants. So you're not going to see that in 23 and 24. All right, so in 22 we got in about $5,987,27 in grant awards. In FY23 at this moment we're at $2,902,000. But we still do always search for grants. But those 2 jumps are mainly due to the COVID years. Okay. Oh, well, one more thing I wanted to mention on that. There's currently about 50 grant employees, and the grants do pay for all the benefits for those grant employees. And that includes the pension, the health, and the dental. And the estimate for FY23 of that health and dental insurance alone is $281,677. So it's a healthy chunk that the grants do pay for those health objectives. If you go to the Chapter 78, so Norwood's Chapter 78 jumped 36.83% in FY23, an increase of $3,414,809, big jump. I said this when we were at FinCom, I'm going to say it again. The superintendent was correct, and much to my surprise, it jumped again 28.81% in FY24, so we got another 3.654816 increase. That is historical. You just don't see that. I mean, that's a lot of money in 2 years. So this increase in Chapter 78 for FY24 accounted for 93% of the town's total FY24 cherry sheet increase in revenue, and 94% in FY23. So big jumps in revenue in the Chapter 70. The change in the population, your increase in your high-need students is the largest factor for this jump. In FY22, your low-income level was level 6, and that's 32.7%. In FY23, it went to level 7, which went up to 41.82%. And in FY24, it went up to level 8 of 44.6%. So those low-income levels add additional funding for your Chapter 78. The reason they give you additional funding is because it costs you more to educate those students. All right? So that's one of the reasons. Your foundation budget increased $4,806,125. If I estimate that, the enrollment only is about $4,224,435, and that low income jump was about $581,690. The other thing that happened in your Chapter 78 was they increased your foundation budget, but then they also increased the amount of money that the district has to contribute. So the way Chapter 78 is, they have a certain amount of money that they feel is the foundation that you need to meet to educate your students in Norwood. And then they also come up with what do they feel that the district should contribute. So they take the foundation minus what the district contribute, and that's where you get your Chapter 78. So this year, you did get a large increase in your foundation, but you also got $1,151,309 that they're saying, we're increasing this, but we feel like the district can pay another $1,005,000. All right. And again, a lot of the reason for this is that change in your population. There was not a large increase in the numbers of your students. It was more the change in your population that gave you that large increase. If you go to the net school spending, so the good news is Norwood continues to support their schools. On net school spending, there's a level of spending that you have to meet, and that's your net school spending level. And then the Department of Education will show what the percentage you are over that net school spending. So in FY22, Norwood was 48.1% over your required net school spending. In FY23, it is down a little bit. It's down to 43.2% over the required net school spending. So this is an area that maybe you want to watch, just because I'll give you an idea of people that are at level net school spending are not doing very well. They're going to be having troubles with educating their children at the level that they want to educate the children with the funding that they have. So if you look at other districts that are above the ones that are in the surrounding towns, so Dedham is at 77.7% over their net school spending. Walpole is at 43.1%. Westwood is at 78.7%. Canton at 49.8%. So you may say, well, we're 43.2% over. And that's a good thing, but it also, if you're at level spending, that's going to be very difficult for your district. All right, so now we're going to move on to, so what I just went over was the general fund portion of the budget. So now we're going to go over some of the warrant article requests that we have in. So if we look at the warrant article request, so we are requesting a special education transportation warrant article, a one-time warrant article to cover unanticipated special education transportation out-of-district contracted services due to supply chain issues causing a pause in delivery of much-needed special education vans that are on order. So we're requesting $500,000 in a warrant article. If we do get those vans in, and we do not need this money will be returned to the town. The second one is the school-based Medicaid program revenue transfer from free cash. So we've been talking about the Medicaid all year long. So the Medicaid goes to the town, so it will have to be a free cash transfer, all right? So we're asking for a one-time transfer of funds from free cash to cover extraordinary and unanticipated special education expenses for the schools. The school-based Medicaid program revenue is based on the school district's Medicaid covered services. So that's why we felt like this was a good part to ask for, because of the fact it is special education expenditures that are causing us large increases in our budget. So that's $350,000. The homeless transportation revenue transfer from free cash. So we get reimbursement from the state for our homeless transportation, and the average over the last few years has been about $22,000. This year I do anticipate we may get more, given the fact that we do have more homeless that we are transporting, but that's what we're asking for, a one-time transfer of funds from free cash to cover extraordinary and unanticipated increases in school districts' homeless transportation. Again, the homeless transportation reimbursement, it's based on the school's homeless transportation costs. So that's $22,000. The next warrant article we are requesting is elementary school study. A warrant article, a one-time transfer of funds from free cash to cover a consultant for an elementary school study, and that is $60,000, right? And the final one is the override stabilization fund. So a one-time request to utilize some of the override stabilization fund to cover some of the school district's extraordinary and unanticipated increases due to changes in population, increased numbers in special education and EL, and supply chain issues with special education transportation. So that request is $1,487,643, with the total of the warrant articles of $2,419,643.
I think we had asked this for just, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, for the override stabilization. There's remaining funds that would be in that if granted, that
Yes,
one.
there were. It was originally about $4 million, but then there was some issue with $2 million, so it's like $2 million now, right? Is that what it was? Yeah.
So it should be about 1.3 million left in there, with a little extra.
And second, and more importantly, in the 5 years of this override, is this the first time the schools have tapped that money?
I don't think the override
It's the
has
first time
been hit.
Okay.
It's not been hit.
So I just asked that, obviously, I was watching at home, because this was a 5-year override plan. The idea was to, support this with a stabilization fund, and this is the first time as we expire, or the
Right.
5-year window of that override ends, and this is the first time we've used it. So I think that the schools have more than held up their bargain with that, but thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so now, here we're gonna go over the budget by the major categories. So now, just to give you an idea of how this changes, so this is all the categories, all the expenditures with the general fund and the warrant articles included, okay? So if we do that, the general education is 62% of this budget. It's down from 64% that it was when we were just looking at the general fund. The special education is at 35%, with all the funding sources, and that is risen from the 32%. The EL remained the same at 4%. The payroll stayed the same at 67% general ed, 29% special ed, and 4% EL, because there are no requests for any payrolls in any of these warrant articles. Okay? In summary, So again, the general fund budget is 54,824,886. So it's a 3.83% increase. Again, this is 55.37% of the increase that we got in the Chapter 78. So there still is some remaining out of that Chapter 78 increase. And if you go to the next slide. So the next slide is what will we accomplish with this budget? So we will meet the needs of an increasing diverse student population. There's additional attention to educational learning loss and social emotional needs of students through targeted intervention. There's increased staffing and assistance as well as instructional support for students with disability, English learners, and the general education student population. There's a continuation of the one-to-one Chromebooks for grade 6 and grade 9. There's a teacher laptop refresh. There's a curriculum refresh in pre-K to 12 art, K to 5 multilingual program, and K to 5 health, wellness, and PE. There's professional development in the areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, technology, and instructional practice. There's the community service of Minds Matter Interface Referral Helpline and Metro West Youth Behavioral Survey. And we feel there's an effective use of the grants and the revolving funds. So that is it, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Sheridan.
Can I respond to David's question? You asked last Wednesday too, and I had the numbers more readily available, but I do have them. So with our request, with the override stabilization fund, there will still be $1,310,125 in the override stabilization fund. And with our request and also the capital outlays request of the free cash money, there will still be $657,111 left in free cash. And Anne Marie and Dr. Thompson, all the warrant requests, those went to the Board of Selectmen and they voted on them last night, so they are moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
You good?
Yes.
There's still work to do on the yellow sheets and the motions.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but the warrant articles are all
Yeah.
set. All right,
Ready
thank you.
for spring.
Dave, will you go back to the slide of what did not get in the budget? Slide 16.
Thank you for saying slide 16.
No problem.
That's why I numbered them, right?
Yeah, very helpful.
I'm just glad she wasn't asking you to remember which slide it is. There we go.
So we've talked about the budget so many times now, some of us in this room, and it's all starting to blur together. And we made this point at like the Finance Commission meeting and at EDC, but not everybody has watched that journey. So with these things that we were unable to get into the budget, that first part, the 13.7 FTEs around special education, we were talking last week at the Finance Commission meeting, and I believe you said, Dr. Thompson, none of this is ideal. Like ideally we have all those positions, but we are in compliance currently without them. However, we have to monitor all these positions.
Yep.
And depending on student needs and change, we may get to a point like we did this past summer where now we are mandated and we do have to approve these positions.
Yes. Yeah. So we are at the bare minimum. Any wiggle in the wrong direction, we're going to be having to have the adding staff conversation, which I would like to avoid. We would love to have BCBA stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Those are the folks that help us do functional behavioral assessments, behavior plans, and that sort of thing. We are stretched thin with our BCBAs. I mean, all of these would be, it really is, even with special ed and English language learning, we really are at as low as we can go walking into this. So it's less than ideal.
And could you explain to the community that bottom section, the general ed, the
Yeah.
6.9 that we're not able to get in, what the ramifications to that are?
Yeah, so I'll talk first about the elementary health. HPE is health and PE. We do not have enough health and PE, especially in our lower grades. The elementary principals and elementary schools have asked, this is the second year in a row, to increase the health and PE teachers to enhance that program. Obviously, physical health goes along with mental health. but again, it's difficult to fund in our current environment. Teachers, the Balch and the Oldham, these are grades that are right at that high limit of like 22, 23, 24 in some cases. If we have students move in, we are going to have very crowded classrooms and again have to make a difficult decision. The high school positions, there were 2 actually there. I'm not sure it's middle school and high school, I think it's 2 high school, but that was a business teacher and a science teacher. We were looking to expand not only our business offerings, we are trying to have a post-high school path where students are able to leave our high school if they decide not to go to college immediately or at all, where they have something that they can do, maybe bookkeeping, working at a bank. Getting business courses is an important piece of that, and having that kind of career training before they leave. We do have a school to work program, and this was going to be a key piece of that, and expanding our business. And the other teacher was going to be a science and computer science teacher, and we wanted to expand the AP computer science option, which is a very, I don't want to say easy, but a nice entry into the advanced placement course offerings, and we are not going to be able to do that. Middle school administrative assistant, you might have noticed we are going to open a new school. It's going to have more students in it.
We are?
This was part of, yes, we are. This was part of the plan to wrap, I know what the middle school position was. Oh no, it's down below, that's why. But this was part of the, there was a plan to gradually increase some of the staffing in the middle school, so it wasn't a big drop in FY '25. So that's concerning. The other one is middle school's computer science teacher. We would like to expand Project Lead the Way, both for the 6th, 7th, 8th graders now, as well as having it for 5th grade. And that was the plan going forward, again, opening the new middle school, and that was part of that position. Those are not in this budget.
And a rough estimate, I know there's a range of what these positions would be brought in, but a rough estimate I think is around $500,000 to bring in that 6.9 FTEs. And even if we had the money, even if things evolve at the state and we get more than the governor is saying, we still can't add FTEs because of the override pledge.
Right.
And in the town, we cannot go above the 5 FTEs a year. And if you can go back to the slide previous to this, 15, and I think it's
These ones here total 1,142,000.
the whole sheet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the bottom one's just
Yeah.
the general ed. I think my rough math, Karen, I will defer to you, but my rough math is about $500,000 for that bottom part.
Okay.
But if you, on slide 15, the 5 FTEs that we did move forward with, which is in alignment with our override pledge, is because of all these priorities, they have been deemed top tier priority. So Dr. Thompson, would you share why those 5?
Yeah, so we'll start with the preschool. Many will remember that we did move the Little Mustang Preschool Academy out of the Willett School over here to the Savage. When we did that, we knew we were asking a principal to move between 2 buildings. The population of the preschool has increased. The needs of the kindergarten have increased. That is a physical impossibility to run 2 sites well. We have an interim preschool director in there now. We met him a couple weeks ago, but that is to add that position going forward. The elementary student support specialist, this is in response to our surprise new law that came to us in November around 37H3/4 around discipline. This is a person to help support the alternative measures that we're supposed to be using at the elementary schools. We are currently testing and piloting some programs right now at our elementary schools, and we're going to be coming back and having not only a job description conversation about this position. The name might change a little bit, folks, but it is someone to support the principals. The nice thing about having small neighborhood schools is that we have small, intimate neighborhood schools, but they only have 1 administrator in there. And it's hard to run the building and do alternative methods at the same time. And in many of these schools, and the textbook example of this would be the Balch, there's not really a spot to do some sort of separate in-school program. So we've got a space, we've got a personnel problem there that is in direct response to a law. Normally when new laws come in, you have time to implement them. This was not written this way, and I would throw out that it even has thrown the Department of Education, caught them off guard because they have given very little guidance on this. So the interventionists, those are people we hired originally through the ESSER grants, the COVID grants, specifically to work with teachers, collect data, create groups to accelerate learning and make sure children are not falling behind. They are in each building, and this is the ongoing plan to move them gradually out of the ESSER grant. We have a few more still in the ESSER grant for next year. We need to move them into the general budget. The nurse at the Little Mustang Preschool Academy, we did get a public health grant, the school nursing grant, or the school health grant. Got to help you with the name. But this is, one of the requirements was to have a full-time nurse leader. Up until we got this grant, Nurse Driscoll was flopping between being a full-time nurse and working down in the preschool, but it's required under the grant. That grant over the next 7 years is going to give us $665,000. So if we do not keep the nurse of the LMPA, we lose that going forward, and we lose a lot of mental health programs that we have through that grant. So it's not a position we can do without because of the ramifications of not continuing.
Thank you for explaining. Again, I know some of us have had this conversation a lot over the last couple of months, but I just think it's important people understand how we got to all the numbers that Ms. Sheridan shared, and that this is not easy, and that we wish we could do all of it.
Okay, at this.
Thank you.
Sorry for asking.
At this time, I am going to check to make sure that anybody in the audience is not here to speak, or is anyone here to speak to the budget that was just laid out? Seeing none. Will anybody like to entertain, I will entertain a motion to vote on this budget as presented by Ms. Sheridan.
So moved.
By David, seconded by Teresa.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that passes 4-0. Okay, thank you, Ms. Sheridan, for all of your hard work, as always, on the budget. So at this time, at 7:52, I'll declare the budget hearing portion of our meeting closed. And I will call to order our regular public meeting. So the first order of business for our public meeting is public comment. As a reminder to the community, public comment is a chance to provide statements to the school committee. You can access public comment by registering in advance, by contacting the superintendent's office, by phone, by noon, the day of our meeting, to either put yourself on the list to speak in person at the meeting or receive a link to speak to us via hybrid mode. You may also come to the school committee room and sign up at the time of the meeting. So at this time, I will check with the audience. Is anyone here to provide public comment this evening? Great. Seeing none, and nobody, Dr. Thompson, nobody registered?
No, they did not, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So at 7:54, I will declare public comment closed. Okay, so on to our next item is appearances, and Mr. Riccardi is here to give us the facilities FY24 budget presentation.
I've got Mary O'Brien here with me.
Oh, and Ms. O'Brien, of course.
To correct me on anything I say. So I believe you all got a copy of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, it's it's $8.5 million, almost $8.6 million, of which 5.7 million is made up between utilities and labor. The department is 53 people. The bulk of the mostly all custodians. The bulk of those custodians are in the school buildings. We picked up 9 custodians on the town side. And then if you look at other big budget busters, or that add us up. Snow and ice is $264,000. We had a great winter this year. We didn't come close to spending anywhere near that, but we gotta carry that forward. Our equipment repair and replacement is in here for $304,000. Our maintenance budget is $470,000. Our HVAC is $233,000, and our custodial supplies are $213,000. If you think about what do we have control of in this budget, if you factor out the increase that we put in for utilities, we're at 1.75% increase. We can control our utilities a little bit, but we've got very old buildings. They're very drafty buildings, and you have to have a decent environment in there, so we can't really be turning the heat down dramatically to reduce our utility budget. And we have no control over the market, obviously, for gas, oil, and somewhat electricity, although the light department in Norwood, we get great rates. But the month of February, which was not a very cold month, the high school electric bill was $50,000, and the Coakley Middle School bill was $40,000. So, I mean, and the Coakley, the HVAC system was supposed to be planned to be replaced almost 18 years ago. So it is very old, very inefficient. It was probably already 20-something years old at that point. So we're looking at something that's, 40-something years old now. So it's very inefficient. And we hope every day that it's going to survive until September of '25. We have some money in here, if you went through it, that looks like that it hasn't been expended. But what we've done, what we've been able to do, is we brought a plumber on board when we started this, so the money that we used to give to the plumbing company, we're still in the feeling out thing. Each one plumber, we're still feeling out that there's some money there. We have an electrician who's also a low voltage gentleman, Mr. Campbell, and he takes care of all our alarms, fire alarms, cameras, town-wide. We used to pay an outside vendor for that. So we're starting to realize some savings, and I think we said at the beginning, this is going to be a 3 or 4 year look-see and see where we can stabilize. We're also going to try, under that equipment repair and replacement, we're going to try to start replacing our fleet of trucks, one vehicle a year, and not go to capital outlay to ask for the vehicles. I mean, that's been the wish of the town, try to do it in your operating budget. So some of this extra money will give us an opportunity to do that. We're on target to replace one this year, the vehicles of 2009. So it's well beyond its life cycle. We are facing the same thing I believe the school department is facing. There aren't any people out there who want to come and take jobs, and our department is getting very old from the custodian point of view and from the maintenance point of view and from my point of view. This is an old man, I'm up way past my bedtime. So, we're going to have some challenges going forward, and I'm sure when they negotiate the next round of contracts, you have to start thinking about how do you incentivize people to want to come and do the jobs that we need done. What I can tell you from vandalism this year was much better than last year. I think TikTok didn't concentrate on schools.
Knock on wood, quickly.
What?
Knock on wood.
Yes, so we have a much better year. But again, for those of you that were around, when we did the building study, school building study, the decision was made to do the Coakley because that existing building, it's not how you teach middle school anymore. I mean, it's literally a cave. and the elementary schools was all about the classrooms and what the teachers do in the classrooms to make the rooms really fun to be in and all that. But our elementary schools are getting old and tired. I mean, we go from 108 years at the Balch to 60, almost all of them are at least 60 years old. And the Callahan's 90-something years old. So it is a challenge to keep these buildings up and running. And this budget, I mean, I sat here listening to Karen and all the needs. We could have put in an astronomical budget to try to improve the elementary schools beyond what we do, because they are wearing themselves out over time, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to face in the next 5 to 10 years. Not me, but somebody.
He's looking at me as he said that. I don't know here.
So I don't know if you have any questions, but I think it's a very modest budget. I like the idea that we are taking out the utility increase and not showing that, because we're at 4.7 with the utility increase, and we're at 1.75 without it.
Sure.
So first, Paul, thank you for all that you do. Mary, thank you for all that you did. Thank you to the custodians. None of my questions take away from the amazing work of the people. I hope you know that, Paul. And I hope you know I just always have questions.
I know you would never do that to us.
Okay, just want to be clear. None of my questions are to take away from the work of the people,
Yeah.
and I just always have questions.
Yeah.
So, first question, for the overtime, and this might be a combination of you and Mary and Karen. Does all of the overtime not come out of our revolving fund for rentals, or what is that tipping point where it comes out there?
So we have general overtime budgets.
Okay.
So if you think, I'll just talk about the schools. If
Yeah.
you think about the elementary schools, they're two-man buildings.
Yep.
People get sick, people take vacation, but you still need the coverage.
Yep.
So that means either if the junior's out, the senior's working a longer day, or we ask some of our maintenance guys after hours to go in and do the cleanup.
Okay.
So you got that kind. You've got special events that happen at the schools. You know, the spaghetti dinners and all that. That's all extra time.
Right. So
Um,
what comes out of the revolving fund?
So,
Some can come out of the job.
yeah, so athletics pays overtime.
Yep.
Drama plays overtime. If we have a rental in the high school,
Yep.
the money for that comes out of a rental revolving account.
Okay.
Extended day.
Extended day comes out of their account.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So that's not reflected in this budget.
Okay. In line 766, which is the maintenance of buildings, there's like a note around the service contracts still budgeted, and this might tie into what you were just saying.
Right.
Where it says like cost corrections might be possible going forward.
Right.
Is that what you were referencing?
That's what we're hoping to do.
Okay. And then, I don't know if you have the answer to this, or if this is more of a Mr. Mizuko question.
I can make it up.
Okay, make it up. So line 729, around the water and the proposal of the new rates, is that a done deal with the Board of Selectmen?
I believe the Board of Selectmen voted on that last night
They did.
when they voted this budget in. And so
Okay.
it's something to do with an enterprise
Yeah.
account.
Okay, okay. I didn't know if they,
Yeah.
I don't watch their meetings on Tuesday because I'm here on Wednesday. But okay, so that's fine. And then, Paul, so the numbers that we have in front of us, is everything that we're seeing going into Munis? Or is it just like the bottom line for each category? Like if we approve this, for example, if you're looking at, just stick with like the overtime, line 645, so it's 260,000.
Right.
I know that goes into the Munis system, but then it says for the Balch, 13,479. Is that going to Munis?
That's all,
They only have the totals.
they only get, who gets the totals?
The, in Munis, they only put the totals for us. But then the expenses are done by building. So the budget part is a total,
Mhm.
but the expenses are listed by building.
Okay, but if we, and I know we're still figuring this out, I know this is a work in process, but like the budget that we get for the schools from Karen, like when we see every line, that's what we vote on and that's what we monitor, but with what we got from facilities, it's.
On the
it's-
on the sheet, he
Yeah.
put in what the budget was from Karen's was, and then he did the increase by the total percent for each school, what their actual budgets was before, and then, but in Munis, it only shows the total.
And then.
We have to keep the spreadsheet like of each of the, each of the buildings.
Okay, and then when it goes to town meeting, they're not seeing the breakdown by building, right? They're just seeing
Total.
the total. I'm just trying to think for the process of,
Are you asking for, because of what we
The
need for
actual is-
reporting?
yeah.
The actual is what you and I did this summer. That's what this actual is, right?
From where?
Yeah, but Kate, I'm asking both for the monitoring purposes, but also for what Karen needs for the end of the year report. So are we still figuring out that piece?
Yeah, I'm still working on, we're working on trying to get it more straightforward so that she'll get her information that she needs for the budget, for her reports.
Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully by next year, we'll have everything set where we need to go, and so it'll be easier just for her to plug it all in.
Okay, okay. And then last question, Paul. As you heard on the school budget, there's things we wish we could do, but we can't. I'm sure there's things for your department. What is not in this budget that you wish you would be able to do?
Well, mostly what I would like to do is all capital stuff. I mean, we need to HVAC the elementary schools,
Yeah.
you know, so that they're air conditioned. We need to look at infrastructure, switchgear. You know, we've got switchgear in some of the schools that they don't make them anymore. They don't make replacements. So it's really an infrastructure kind of thing that would look at capital down the road. And, you know, I think once the Coakley opens and we look at what our elementary schools are gonna look like, might be the opportunity to start thinking about, if you go back to the AI3 report, there was $44 million.
Yeah.
What was that, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
2017.
Yeah, okay. $44 million in 2017 money that should be spent in the elementary schools to bring them up to code. So that today is probably $60-odd million. So the town has a big challenge ahead of it. Some tough decisions, but I would say my wish list, I would love to have more maintenance guys. We are getting, you know, almost 2,000 work orders a year now. They never stop. The school department is over, since we started, is 84% of our work orders. And it's never gonna stop because of the age of the buildings, the amount of people we have in them. So I would love to see more people. But we haven't added any staff since this started.
Remember when we approved this whole concept and we had like the flow charts? I know you were a part of that, and like David Hajar was a part of that. And we like ruled in some positions in the beginning. Was there positions that we originally forecasted we wanted to get in that we haven't?
We were looking at an HVAC position.
Yep.
We were looking at potentially, I think that if I remember, another electrician. We have an opening coming up, retiring this year of a licensed craftsman who's a carpenter. And we are potentially we're gonna rehire that, but we're gonna look for a licensed electrician, low voltage guy that can supplement our existing electrician.
Did you help?
If I could just comment, I mean, it does make sense that the schools would still be a majority of facilities when you have 33,500 users every single day and into the night. So it's, you know, the use of the building is, the school buildings is more so than more people in and around than you would
Right.
see like in town hall or the police station or whatever, so.
I mean, I gotta say this, Teresa. I really hope this facility morphs into a service delivery, that we are delivering a service to the town, and that everyone gets taken care of. And we don't have to worry about the money. If we don't deliver the service, you let the superintendent know, you let the town manager know, and he lets me or whoever else is in my position know. But I think we need to, from my perspective, we need to psychologically start looking more, this is a service delivery. In a funny way, same as the DPW plows our roads, same as the light department supplies electricity, I think that's where facilities should be headed. But that's just me saying.
I'll add to one question. I'm just curious, how many vehicles does facilities have?
9.
Okay. I just didn't know that.
That's backhoes, tractors, and then trucks.
And the trucks, the white,
Yeah.
just the
And
white
not-
trucks?
It's, our biggest truck is a dump truck, and it's not a real, it's a F-350 Ford, it's not a big dump truck.
I was just curious. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. McCarty? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the facilities budget for FY '24? So moved by Kate, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by David, all those in favor?
Aye.
So pass 4-0, thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
I have to fall asleep on the way home now.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you both.
Okay. So moving on to our next item on our agenda is the superintendent's report.
Yep. Grab my slide. There we go. All right, seeing that I just did one of these last week, it's not going to be lengthy. There we go. All right, so just a quick update. Ash to Flame, which is our competitive play from our drama club, they are going to the state finals. I believe they perform tomorrow evening, the 30th. They have also been invited. As of yesterday, we got news that they were invited to represent Massachusetts at the New England competition, which will be up in Maine, which is why we have a last-minute preliminary field trip request, because we need to work a little bit on that. But wish them all the luck in the world, break a leg. And again, like I said last week, it's just an absolutely amazing performance, and hopefully, if you can't get into Boston to see them compete, tomorrow hopefully we'll get another opportunity.
Where
to
are
see
they
them.
performing tomorrow? Sorry.
Where are they performing tomorrow?
New England Life Hall.
There you go. So,
Jody?
okay, I was able to attend the winter sports recognition
Wait.
Monday. Oop.
I'm going to pause you just because Jody's not on microphone, so if anybody at home wanted to hear that,
Oh.
New England Life Hall is where they will be performing.
Why isn't Jody on microphone?
All the way over there?
I think we should have you wired 24/7. I think you're already wired 24/7.
Oh, I am.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Jody, there's an open seat tonight.
Right.
Come
Come on
out.
I did have the privilege of going to the winter sports recognition on Monday, and again, this season again was extraordinary. We had teams in the Final 8, teams in the Sweet 16. I don't want to steal all of John Longley's thunder. Several TVL All-Star, TVL all honorable mention. But I think the thing that I'm proudest of is how well these young people have represented Norwood High School and the town of Norwood. And I definitely want to call out the cheerleaders who won the TVL sportsmanship competition this winter. Congratulate them. But they will be, John will be coming in April to give you the full rundown. But again, it just was a great opportunity to celebrate them and their season. So, and we're looking forward, and just from listening to them, looking forward to next winter as well. So, and the spring season is in full swing. So the game should be starting in another week or so. Dr. Galligan, John Longley, and myself had the opportunity to attend the Addressing Hate in Schools workshops, which was last Friday and Saturday. We had our meetings up at Babson with several other districts and their leadership team. It was a great program, and look forward to bringing that back. For those who don't know, this was a joint effort between the MIAA and Governor Healy, who was the Attorney General when she got involved, and the Principals Association. Just a reminder that extended day registration is open. If you have not registered, please do. We will be looking at staffing and lists soon. And then the other kind of fun story that came out last night, I don't know if anyone is a Channel 7 watcher, but if you're not, you can go on the Channel 7 website and you can see the Norwood High School U.S. government class being interviewed there because they are working with Rep. Rogers to get Massachusetts, believe it or not, does not have a state ice cream flavor. Yeah, so I want you to know that our kids are on that, and they have done a lot of research and they're pushing for cookies and cream. So I just want you to know it is a great story, and congratulations to them. And then I want to flip over to field trips. The Coakley Middle School, which is actually when I only got the top, like the memo, this page earlier, and then when I went downstairs, Mrs. Reardon, Chief of Staff Extraordinaire, corrected me on my error, but you see that we have a full itinerary and what have you. We do need to start the process of students registering for this trip, but this is going to be an overnight to New York City, and if you look, it actually looks kind of cool. I might want to get myself in on this trip because I have not been to the Museum of Natural History in New York, so I might have to go. I know, get the look. So this is one of their big trips. We are still planning to go to Canby Lake Park and a few other things with the 8th graders, but this is an 8th grade trip. Do you want to the next one, or do you want to talk about this one first?
Maybe take them one at a time.
Yeah, since they have different levels of
Yeah.
information,
Yep.
we should probably divide them out.
So basically, you're just looking for preliminary approval tonight, and then we'll get more information for the April 12th meeting on like the specifics, or do you think we have?
I think
pretty
we
much
have.
the
I
whole
think we have
shebang?
enough for the New York trip, but I will definitely update you on the 12th.
So is the hotel facilified? I think that's the only thing I don't see.
Yeah, I don't know as if it says one night hotel stay. I don't know exactly which hotel it is.
I mean, we have the itinerary, we have the insurance,
Yep,
we have the cost.
Doesn't-
I just don't see the lodging.
it doesn't say which hotel. But it's through the tour company.
Hotels.
It doesn't say where, so we just need to get up to
That's a couple months out.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Thompson on the field trip?
No, I mean, Dr. Thompson, I emailed you and Dr. Frazek earlier. We definitely support the trip, and I thank Dr. Frazek for getting an opportunity out there for the 8th grade class. That's really important. I just always worry about the cost and fundraising and the quick turnaround. I know that fundraising won't be
Yep.
an option, and I talk about this every time we approve a field trip, but really to the community, we really have to figure out a way to help our students and fund some of these wonderful opportunities, because not all our students can afford them. And over the last 6 years, I've said a couple times that we really need an educational foundation in Norwood, and we do. And as a school committee member, I'm not allowed to be a part of setting that up. But I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody in the community about how to do that and why it's so important. But every time we approve a field trip, I'm just reminded of how much that is a need.
Yep.
Any other questions? Does anybody want to make a motion to approve this preliminarily? Do I have a second? Second. Second by Kate. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So 4-0.
Okay, so the second trip, and again, they just got the invite Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning, so they're still trying to figure out where they're going to stay. I mean, obviously, this is for the drama, the drama production, and it is the New England Drama Festival is being held at Camden Hills Regional High School, which is in Rockport, Maine. So it's not really a day trip, if you know where Rockport is. But they would be leaving on the 20th and returning on Saturday the 22nd. It obviously will be bus transportation. We need obviously to get a lot more details. Mr. Quinn, I think, is doing circles right now. He's doing several circles. One is that he's got a competition this weekend, and now he's got another one in the middle, towards the end of April. So I am asking for a preliminary conceptual okay, and when I have that information, hopefully by next Wednesday, I will mail that with you, and we would do a final official approval on April 12th. But they need to know whether they have the preliminary philosophical okay in order to start doing the work, so.
So this is over break, correct? Isn't that break?
It's the,
Last weekend.
yeah, I think it is,
Yeah,
yes.
that is.
Right,
Yeah.
that's break week in
Yeah.
April.
Yes, yeah, and that's usually because, yeah, it is during break. It's the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, over vacation, and I believe Maine usually has a March spring break.
Or they would, oh, that's right, we
Yeah.
got sure Vermont the week
Yep.
after.
Yep.
Do you know, Dr. Thompson, when they say the cost will vary between 70 and 200 depending on funding, is that fundraising, or is that the Parent Music Association doing some sponsoring?
I don't know the answer to that. I think it would be maybe PMA, or I think it might be, a better word might be depending on cost. I don't think he has not found a hotel or something to stay in, and he has not priced it us at this point.
Okay.
So that's a pretty big ballpark guess, if you think, there.
And not that this is going to impact my vote, but some of the students involved in this are also going on field trips out of the country that week, are they not?
I don't know I would have to look at one list to
Just the
another.
commentary, as we're
Yes.
approving the trip, I'm just
Yes.
wondering how many of the students
Yeah,
are
well, they-
actually already on another
Right,
field trip.
they might, I mean, this is, from what I've been told, and, you know, I'm obviously not a Shakespearean actor, and Mrs. Smith will call me on that, but they are evolving this show every time they perform it.
Oh.
So they have rewritten, I mean, I was talking to parents, they were talking about the first time they performed it and how it had changed, and they had fixed it each and every time. So this is kind of an interesting process. So I would imagine that some other people might do some different parts if they were going to lose some people.
Got it. It's a lot of work.
How'd I do?
Not bad.
Not bad, good, thank you.
I'm impressed.
If you could write that down, that doesn't always
Yeah.
happen, so.
Mark that at
Yeah, mark that
8:23.
down.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to preliminarily approve the trip.
I'll second it.
Seconded by David, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for the last minute on both of those, but definitely was a little bit out of our control. So oh, wait a minute, one more. Want to go back and talk a little bit more about, or remind people, we are still looking for positions. That school psychologist position has been open since May. We currently had to contract with an outside service to get caught up on our testing. We would love to have someone join us who would be a full-time employee of ours. We have hired 2 paraprofessionals. We're down to needing 5 right now. We're always looking for long and short-term substitutes. Extended day staff is an ongoing need, and we will be advertising soon for our summer extended year programming this summer. So there might be some opportunities for high school kids to help as aides with that, and also with our extended learning time programs that we're running, our acceleration programs this summer as well. We would love to have some high school kids who maybe are thinking about becoming teachers join us in that. So those postings will be going up probably by the end of this week, if not the beginning of next week, so please look for that. And that is the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions for Dave on anything talked about? Great. Okay. So moving on to our next agenda item is budget. So Ms. Stewart will give us the budget subcommittee update.
I think Mr. Hiltz gleefully said more budget. It's a short update though, because Ms. Sheridan already did the bulk of the work.
It's March, so I
Uh-huh.
mean, that's just what happens.
So just to recap, we met last week. We took some votes. Those got to the Board of Selectmen on the warrants. Ms. Sheridan already covered what those were. Then we went to the Finance Commission last Thursday. I believe they're approving our budget. They didn't actually take a vote because they were waiting for the joint facilities budget and the general government budget from Mr. Mizuko, and they're getting those presentations from the town tomorrow night, and then they're approving on the whole, they're voting on the whole package, but I believe they will approve everything that Ms. Sheridan just shared with us. We met last Friday as a budget subcommittee, basically just got ready for our budget hearing tonight. And then we are meeting again tomorrow morning at 8:30, if you want to join us. And we're really getting back to some of the longer term and the overall budget analysis that we started before working on FY24. So we're looking at the fee analysis, we're looking at the athletic report. We now have to get our presentations ready for town meeting. And then we're going to plan out the work of April, May, and June. The subcommittee will need to continue meeting about 2 times a month. We need to resume HR study, the long-term budgeting. As we shared with you last week, there is a commitment to keep the budget balancing committee going in May after town meeting. So we have some work to do to get ready for that, starting already to figure out FY25 and beyond. We also are looking at the shared cost allocation agreement that we have with the town, and there's some additional work that we probably have to do there. So tomorrow, touching base on a few things that'll come back to us on April 12th, the fee analysis and the athletic report, and then really planning out those longer and wide range goals of the community. So that is the brief budget update.
Any questions on the budget update? Seeing none, move on to the next item under budget, is approval of grants.
So there are 4 new grants to approve. So there is the Title III Part A, which is a federal grant, and it's an immigration grant, provides supplemental resources to local school districts to provide enhanced instructional opportunities for immigrant children and youth, and that is $16,468. There is Influence 100, a state grant. It is districts select rising leaders to participate in a 2-year fellowship to prepare for superintendent roles through monthly training and ongoing support in the key aspects of superintendency with a particular focus on equity, and that is $2,000. The Supporting SEL, Behavior and Mental Health and Wellness, it's a state grant. The purpose of this state-funded competitive grant is to adapt, expand, or strengthen multi-tiered systems of support to respond to the social, emotional, behavioral health needs of students, families, and educators, and to build strong partnerships with community-based mental health agencies and our providers to create comprehensive mental health systems. That one is $99,185. And finally, Early Literacy Universal Screening Assessment Grant. It's a state grant. This grant is to provide funding to purchase and implement an approved early literacy universal screening assessment that meets expectations in grade K through 3. This grant also provides funding to purchase initial professional development, which focus on administration and using results to make data-based instructional decisions for students in grades K through 3. And that is $36,710. So the total of the 4 is $154,363.
The SEL Behavioral Mental Health Grant, exactly what are we doing with that?
So we received that grant to train over 2 years, to train a bunch of our paraprofessionals to become registered behavior technicians.
Okay.
So it's 40 hours of training. We paid them for the time, paid for the training, and if they wanted to be certified, we also could pay for the exam.
How many did you say we can train?
I think it's 30 this year, I think 30 next year.
And is it only paraprofessionals?
Well, we wrote the grant for paras.
For paras. I was just wondering, like, if the paras didn't want to be trained, is there another opportunity, or it very strictly has to be the paras?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
that the one that Lori spoke to us about today?
Yes. Part of it. The other portion of that grant is to train our staff in safety care, which is de-escalation and minimal restraint training.
And when you say train staff, what staff?
So it was open to general ed staff, and we do have some extra spots available. So if there's central office staff that want to get trained, we've opened the opportunity for them as well.
Is that this school year or next year?
This
Starting
school
this
year.
This school
But I
year?
think
Yep.
we chatted, I chatted with Laurie today, is that the one we're gonna try to get the monitors and the band
Yes.
drivers in?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'll be important.
We're trying to
Yep.
get them in on this grant,
Yeah.
cause I did talk to Al, and he was open to it.
Okay.
So that one's a 2-year grant?
It ends August 31st, so the beginning of FY24.
Okay. And
I'm sorry, it ends in August 31st?
Mhm.
FY24.
Of FY24. Okay, I was like, excuse
Yeah,
me?
yeah.
Like, that's
Year
not,
from
that's
August
not a long
31st.
time, let's get spending, like,
Yeah.
what?
It's not a full 2 years, it's kind of.
Like a year and a
Got
half,
it.
Like a year
right.
and a
We're getting it now,
Yeah.
and then it ends at the end, I
Yeah.
got it, okay, got it.
And just in case people couldn't hear, because Karen was kind of quiet, but she was saying it includes you were saying it includes the drivers as, like van or bus drivers as well are eligible to be trained?
Yes, so for safety care, we opened up, we wrote that section of the grant more broadly. So for any teachers that didn't want to get trained or, empty spots we had, we could open it up to anyone.
Okay.
And today we met about it in our admin team meeting and thought about offering it to our bus drivers and monitors as well, since they really are on the front line for us too.
Yeah, and I do want to stress that all of these programs, it is first de-escalation and managing behavior.
Right.
And restraint is not what any of these programs is all about.
Correct.
And this is a grant you sought, right? It didn't, it wasn't just open to anybody. You had to find it, apply for it.
I found it as I scour grants every week for the district. And Lori Semino, Kate Davey, and I wrote the grant together.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thanks.
And any of these grants have any stipulation of other money that has to be spent? No,
What do you mean?
like that health grant.
No, it doesn't. No.
The health grant-
No.
But that's not.
No.
Yeah, these are.
You're gonna get that question
Right.
from me forever now.
So the health grant is not from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, it's from the Department of Mental Health.
Yeah,
They
it was a
play the
little
game.
different.
They play
Yeah.
the game a little different.
Yeah.
The
Just
educational
wanna be
grants.
clear.
Yeah. There's no
Right on the-
salaries in this grant.
Right.
Okay.
I was actually gonna ask that, so, yeah, so these will all 4 of these will go into effect during this school year? Okay, and then all 4 of them will carry over into FY24, and I'm assuming they've all been accounted for in our budgeting already?
Correct.
Okay. No, because budget, David, budget.
Isn't it your favorite topic?
Yeah.
It's budget all the time. Any other questions on these
Seeing
grants?
spreadsheets between that and MCAS this week.
I dream in spreadsheets these days, I swear to God.
I'll make a motion to approve these grants.
I moved by Kate, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Teresa, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Sheridan. Okay, so moving on to our next order of business, under old business, we have an update on the school committee and student advisory council meeting that Ms. Stewart and I had this week.
Yeah, last week.
Last week? They're blending.
So last Thursday during wind block at the high school, Anne Marie and I went to the high school to meet with our student advisory council. As a reminder to everybody, this is something new this year. We're still figuring out how we want this to work. As you know, we get the quarterly reports from Kiara O'Donnell, who is our official liaison, but then in between the quarterly updates, the school committee or some of us are supposed to meet with the student advisory council. So that's why we were there. You have my notes in your packet that recap the meeting. Kiara and I had worked together to establish an agenda, so we had 3 parts to the meeting. The first was to respond to some of the topics that they brought forth to us in their last quarterly report. The second was to plan ahead for their next quarterly report, which is going to be on May 17th. And then the third was to begin to discuss next steps of what we want this to look like next year. I thought it was a really great meeting. The students have some really great insight that is so valuable to us. Some of the things that Anne Marie and I talked to them about their last quarterly report was really just some clarification and explaining like how a school committee works and what is under our authority and what is under the principals and Dr. Thompson. So some of the things that they had brought forward before around curriculum, that's not really under us. So we can hear it and we can pass it on. But we wanted them to understand that, you know, certain areas should go more to their principal and or Dr. Wyatt, Dr. Taylor, and Dr. Thompson. But they did share with us last time about some fee questions, like, you know, is there a way to have a more streamlined waiver process for students? So we did share with them the work that we've been doing in the budget subcommittee, that we're still working on the fee analysis, but that it is part of the goal to have a streamlined waiver process. We talked to them, let me get all my notes here. They had some questions around clubs, so we explained how clubs are approved, how there is a stipend component to that, a contractual component. And then they shared some feedback that they had around mental health and behaviors in the district. So we started the meeting off with that. Then we started to plan ahead. So again, the next quarterly report is going to be on May 17th. And you can see in my notes that we identified with them which topic areas they're going to be working directly with students. So the two school advisory council members who work in elementary levels are planning to work through the principals, connect directly with students in grades 1 through 5. They want to hear directly from students about their feedback on the change in school start times this year. They're going to get direct feedback from the students on improvements that the students would like to see in their elementary schools. And then also what clubs do our elementary students wish that they had after school. Last quarterly report, they didn't touch base at the Willett, so they are going to make sure to talk with Dr. Bellier about how things are going at the Willett. At the Coakley, the two council members who work with the middle school, we're also going to focus on getting some direct student feedback on the change in start times, as well as what improvements the students at the Coakley would like to see in their school. And they also wanted to talk to Dr. Frasick more about getting certain clubs like Student Council and Search back up and running. And then at the high school, they were going to focus on getting that student feedback on the start times as well. So those will be the big topics that they bring back to us on the 17th. We shared with them, which Dr. Taylor will tell us about momentarily, that a survey on start times is going to go out to parents. And we shared with them about the ongoing work we've been doing with the union. Because I think it's important that as we bring our students in, they understand where their role fits in with everything else that the district and the school committee is doing. We have another meeting set up with them on April 27th. And at that meeting, it's really going to be a working group where we're going to start to create some templates for them to use next year. So a template on how to ask and what topics do fall under school committee that we want them to ask directly to students. Another template of how they should be interacting with the principals. And then they want to dive into policy work, which I think is great. But as we all know, that is big and overwhelming. So we are going to start to help them create like a template that would guide them through, because if they just go through our manual, they're going to be overwhelmed. So giving them some direction. So that's what we're doing on April 27th. But is there any questions or feedback or anything that you would like Anne Marie and I to take back at that April meeting?
I think I'll just add to just meeting with this group of students, like they're so enthusiastic, and they are, you know, it's just really great to see like a lot of them are involved in a lot of different things and that they still have enough time and effort and energy to want to improve their schools. Even, you know, the seniors, you know, Kira's a senior, you know, they're still invested in nearly April of their senior year, and really like even like we talk about the policy. Kira was all ready to dive into policy. It was like, girl, you are out of here in a month, you know. Like, so it's really great to see that they value their experience here. They value the Norwood Public Schools, and they really want to improve what is, you know, what we are. And that was just, it's just a great energy to meet with them.
Yeah, it's really encouraging and I think helpful to us too. And if I'm available, is there anything that is against protocol if I were to join?
Nope, it's
as well?
posted as a
Okay.
public meeting, so we
Got it.
can all be there. It's been hard to get all 5 of us together.
Right, okay.
But no, you can join, it's posted.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Feel free.
The other topic we had talked to them was around just communication and how, as they're our liaison, making sure that they are bringing the voice of the entire student body to us, and then also taking back their experience working with us back to the student body. So we're going to figure out some communication protocols as well. And then just as a reminder to the school committee, one thing we do have to figure out by the end of the year is who is the advisor for this group. It's kind of defaulted to Dr. Galligan this year, and it shouldn't have, so thank you, Dr. Galligan, for taking it on. But this is a district-wide initiative, so we do have to figure out who's going to be the advisor for next year.
Meaning it needs to be a school committee member?
No.
Oh.
It's supposed to be a faculty
Okay.
member.
No staff
I
member.
was gonna say.
Yep. So that is the update on our meeting with the Student Advisory Council.
Thank you. Okay, so moving right along to Dr. Taylor is going to give us an update on the draft of the school start time survey.
Yes, so when the start times were changed the beginning, well, voted on last year, rolling out this year, one of the caveats or sort of measures of success was that there would be a survey that went out to the community halfway through the year. So we're a little later than halfway through the year, but that survey has been completed. In addition to that, there have been several meetings with union representation and with several staff members. So this portion, so that's been taken care of by the administration. This survey is going to go out to parents and caregivers to just a short survey to get their perspective on how the start times are impacting them. Any questions?
So the template of the survey has been sent around actually previous to this, but the copy of it is in your packet. So does anybody have any questions for Dr. Taylor on the survey that will be sent out?
2 questions. One, can this be translated for families?
So I'm going to make it a Google form so that it can be.
It can be.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. And then 2, I know you and I were kind of talking about data collection before, but with that top one of identifying the schools that their children are at, for families who have kids at more than one level, how is that going to impact the rest of the questions?
So that's a decision point.
Mhm.
So the way it's set up now, the one parent can put in check boxes. I have a kid at the Oldham, I have a kid at the Coakley, and I have a kid at the high school. And then they can give an aggregate answer of how it's affecting my child or children.
Okay.
If it's affecting one child differently, in multi-child household, they could choose to fill it out individually if they're seeing different impacts for their children, for each kid.
Okay. But from our point of can't think of the word I'm looking for, but separating out the data and analyzing it,
Mhm.
it may not be entirely clear that, for example, the families at the Callahan see this, and the families at the Coakley see this, and the families at the high school see this, because there may be some families with children at multiple levels.
Can we direct them if they have separate, since the timings are different, that if they have kids at separate schools to fill out for each kid?
We can.
Would that be?
Yeah, we can.
I mean, does that make sense to people? Since,
Yeah.
so that.
And I haven't played with it, but I think if we do check boxes, because we selected multiple, we might be able to filter out by school. You'll be able to see everything by school. But I haven't played with it to see.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? I think we're looking for a vote tonight on this, and when would this go out?
I mean, it can go out tomorrow if you'd like.
ASAP. If there aren't any other questions, is there a motion to approve this start time survey?
So moved.
Moved by Teresa,
Second.
seconded by David. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kate. I was gonna say, do I have to say opposed? So that passes 4-0. Sometimes it surprises me when an arm stays down. I'm like, is
Oh, no,
she
that
not
was just
doing
slow,
it?
sorry.
Dr. Taylor, how should families expect this? Is it a newsletter from the superintendent, or where will they be getting it?
I'm going to put it, it'll be in the superintendent's newsletter tomorrow, but it's also going to be a separate message on Friday
Okay,
through Parent Square.
okay, perfect.
Mhm.
And how long will they have?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Thank you.
wait, one more question. I approve it regardless, but, where we, not that I expect any of our parents to do this, because who has the time? But to prevent someone who maybe hates it from filling it out 25 times, because we do have, the option does seem to be there to fill it out multiple times for multiple children. Do we have any way of kind of, or I would hope that nobody would sabotage it that way. But somebody might
yeah, there's a thing
really,
you can
really
check
hate
that's
this.
We
like-
can set the filter to collect email addresses of people
Ah,
that
good
respond,
point.
and
Okay.
then filter out the duplicates and see if it's, are you filling it out because you have more than one child, or you,
Yeah, that
I mean,
auto
if you have
populate.
15 children, that's probably a flag.
Mm.
So,
That would definitely be a flag. I don't, I mean, it's possible in Norwood, but I have not heard of any of those large families.
Dr. Taylor, so for comments, on each question, the person will have the opportunity to give feedback. Okay.
open-ended comments, yeah.
Open-ended,
Mhm.
okay. Along with that's great.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so, the next item on the agenda is the joint facilities MOU, and I'm going to table this until the next meeting, and I'm just gonna keep putting it onto our agenda until it actually gets done, because, I'm just gonna keep sending emails to the town side to try to get this, through, but again, as we've said, we're all super busy with budget season. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, that it's just because of budget season that that's not happening. So that will be tabled until the next meeting, God willing. So then the next item on the agenda was the executive summary for the superintendent mid-cycle. That is on here just to remind the body that we were supposed to get an executive summary for Dr. Thompson's mid-cycle review to him by the end of the month. That's tomorrow, right? Yes, the 30th?
Friday.
30
Friday.
days past
Friday.
November
31st.
Right. I literally still have to say that every time. Friday is the end of the month, so 2 days left to get the executive summary to Dr. Thompson, which is just basically a short written evaluation, no form necessary. Just Dr. Thompson requested it be in writing as opposed to a verbal update. So that's all that was on here for, just to remind everybody. So then moving on to policy, again, policy subcommittee is on here, update is on here. I know we did not meet since the last meeting, but just in case there were any
Sure.
updates.
Yeah, I watched your meeting from last week, and it sounds like and I saw also while I was gone that an April 5th, an additional meeting was added before our April 13th meeting. So I'm guessing that, I'm thinking we can communicate about the handbook question as well that came up last meeting, and then iron out the long-term agenda stuff. But nothing, yeah, we didn't meet, so there's no news. Don't say no news.
So our next meeting is
April 5th.
April 5th.
6 p.m.
Yep.
Amber, before you continue, just to go back to the executive summary.
Yes.
So there were a couple goal areas that needed to be fleshed out for a year or two.
Yes.
Is that now moved to our next meeting?
Yes. Yes. The team that was to get together with Dr. Thompson to do that, it was the SMART goals, around the SMART goals,
Yeah.
was not able to to meet before this meeting, so that will be on the next agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so then the next item is communications policy. So through a massive oversight, we had actually taken a first vote on this communications policy back in August, but we did not do a second vote on that after we did it. So that just was a clerical administrative oversight. It was posted to the website for a community comment. I think it's probably been there since August for community comment. And Dr. Thompson, has anybody commented from the community on this policy?
They have not, and it's been beyond the 2 weeks, so I think we're good.
So the purpose tonight is to take that final vote. Ms. Stewart did have a question that was emailed earlier, and it was around the numbering.
Well, yeah, I just need the file number.
Yep, file number. So do we need that to do the second vote tonight, or can we assign it a file number as
No,
a?
I think we could take the second vote, but just notify us.
Yeah, when we have one, we can
Yeah,
place it.
and where it's gonna go. And then, on the website, you probably just wanna say new policy, file number, whatever it is,
Yeah,
so people are aware.
before it goes into the manual. we can definitely do that. Were there any questions on this policy before we take that final vote?
I guess I would just ask, since it's been a while, is the policy working the way that you had intended?
Yep. Yeah, I think, well, between the policy and moving to Parent Square, I think people are getting a uniform type of communication. And there's not differences between buildings and not a whole bunch of phone calls. Parent Square actually has been worth the shift. It was kind of sudden for everybody, but it does translate to all the languages. People can choose how they want to receive the notifications. Still working a little bit with the youth organizations about sign up for softball and that sort of thing. I've kind of held firm on give me the text, give me the photo, we'll put it out there. They've learned that by putting active links in there, people can register from their phone, and actually those are on the uprise. So we're good, you know, and we haven't had to use a lot of the phone call alerts, urgent things, but that is very clear and piece. So when people get phone calls, they know it's something important. So
I have to say too that the piece of the translation, as a former board member on one of these sports organizations, we would kind of get together, this was several years ago, about translating a lot of our documentation for the different populations, like especially, you know, soccer. You know, soccer is a very popular sport in other parts of the country, and they weren't getting those populations to play soccer. And why? Well, half of them couldn't read the English paper that would come home, and really didn't understand so, you know, outside organizations really being able to utilize the school's investment in Parent Square is a little bit of a tangential bonus. So if you give the text and not a flyer, it can be translated into the other language.
It's a big community engagement.
It is a wonderful.
we are still working as we're going back to the organizations and say, okay, take your flyer, your PDF, and save it as a JPEG, and then, you know, the important text. We put the important text in above the picture, and that tells people what it is.
That will be
awesome.
And having the active links in the photo, they can just click on the links and it goes to whatever registration process they're using. So,
Yes, gotta say, well done with the Parent Square. That was a really great piece of technology. Okay, so back to the policy. Any other questions?
No.
Does anyone want to make a motion to approve?
So
Moved by Teresa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that passes 4-0. And thank you, Teresa, for bringing that to our attention that we had missed that. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is legislative advocacy.
Yes. So in the packet that I put in last night is a draft letter that Jody Smith and I have started to work on. So just as a reminder, a couple meetings ago, the school committee approved that I could work with the union president because we wanted to do some joint advocacy around some legislation. Not necessarily looking for a vote tonight because it's not yet completed, but just wanted to make sure everybody is on board with what we're working on so far. So we are working on two versions of this letter, one to go to Senator Rush and one to go to Representative Rogers. I'll just read it, it's not terribly long, but Dear Senator Rush, Representative Rogers, we are writing this letter unified as the Nora Public Schools School Committee and the Nora Teachers Association to ask for your support for our students. Specifically, we are asking you to support Governor Haley's budget. We are also asking you to advocate for a few bills that are currently in the Senate and House. First, please support full funding for the Student Opportunity Act. Governor Haley has stated that this is a goal of hers. It is essential that Chapter 70 increments continue to be funded appropriately and fully for the remainder of the 7 years of the SOA rollout. It is also important to continue to phase in charter school mitigation dollars to full funding levels. Second, we encourage you to support proposed changes to special education circuit breaker. Currently, circuit breaker provides, that should be 75%, not 75% reimbursement for special education cases over $47,000 in cost. We are seeking that this be increased to 90% reimbursement. Additionally, currently the threshold is roughly 4 times the average per pupil cost. We are seeking to lower this threshold to 3 times. There is a bill currently in the Senate, SD 1786, that we are asking you to support. Full funding of the circuit breaker is critical in today's economy. As you know, out-of-district tuition is at an all-time high of 14% inflation. As you may also know, NORD's number of students who are enrolled in out-of-district programs is also increasing. Likewise, costs associated with special education transportation are also rapidly increasing. Therefore, we are advocating for a continued phase-in approach of special education transportation being incorporated into the circuit breaker. Third, regarding special education reserve funds, there is a bill in the House, HD 1419, that would permit schools to save up to 5% of their net school spending amount instead of the current 2% in a reserve fund. This will not require any additional funding sources, but rather will allow districts to plan more efficiently for challenging situations. Lastly, we are asking for your support around the retention of Medicaid revenues. Currently, regional districts receive this money directly, but in Norwood and other districts, the municipality receives it. We believe that all school districts should receive and retain Medicaid and other reimbursements for special education services that are provided by the schools and covered by Medicaid, MassHealth, and Medicare. All of these are items we have talked about before from that one webinar that I attended with MASC. The other area that we have not yet fully fleshed out, so I need some feedback from the admins and the school committee, is around the Thrive Act, which is around changing MCAS and supporting the whole child and advocating that MCAS is not a graduation requirement. But I need some feedback if the school committee wants that to be part of this letter, a separate letter, or not at all.
I would suggest a separate letter.
Yeah, I would suggest a separate letter. This is about funding, funding, and funding, and the other one is about philosophy, philosophy, philosophy. Let's
MCAS?
That makes sense.
MCAS, MCAS, yep. Yeah, so.
Okay. So we can work on a separate letter, but any feedback or concerns with this?
Would that
draft?
also be in conjunction with the union teachers?
It would.
Great.
Right, Ms. Smith, it would be in conjunction with the NTA?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, so we'll work on a second letter. Any feedback on this letter?
I think it sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you so much for,
Nice job.
thank you both for doing this.
Yeah. So we're hoping that we can have it approved at the next meeting on April 12th, and then the union has a board meeting on April 13th. So that is the timeline of approval that we would be seeking.
Cool.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna jump on your coattails here too and just kind of update. I just actually forwarded it to you guys. It was, I think last week we might have discussed that Selectman Bob Donnelly was going to be writing a letter in support of the the Middle School Building Committee, and so funding again, but around inflation and all of the issues that we've been having. Well, not issues, but just kind of the unfairness of trying to build a middle school with all these inflationary issues and how we're really not helping our students and not really fully realizing what this school could be, because we have to, make so many cuts in this, really challenging times that we're in. Mr. Donnelly did forward his letter, and it was discussed that, it was discussed that it should really be a joint, letter from the school committee and from the Board of Selectmen. So they did discuss it last night at their meeting. There were a couple of minor edits that were identified, but overall they voted on that. And the edits were made, and it was forwarded to me a couple of hours early, very early this morning. So as soon as those are printed out on letterhead, it will be signed by both the chair of the Selectmen's chair, Mr. Plasko, and myself, and then we will send those off to Representative Rogers, Representative Rush, and Senator Rush, and Governor Healy. So there are 3 separate letters being sent out as a joint effort. So that was, I think it was, Teresa, you were the advocate for getting that to be a joint.
Yes, possibly.
Yeah, even though you've been, kind of railing
I've
about it for a while.
I've also been talking to the state about this for months, so.
Right. Madam Chair, if you could forward that to Mrs. Reardon, I'm pretty sure we could probably get that printed out and ready tomorrow?
It was actually, he forwarded it to Jess Joswick to get
Okay.
that printed out, so.
Okay, maybe they want it on a town letterhead then.
That's what it was going, it was
Okay.
going on town letterhead, and I think it'll
Okay.
be, he will let me know when it's available in the selectman's office to come in and sign, and I will run right over there and do it, so we can get these sent out, because I think it's really important to.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think it's just important for people to know this is also not requesting like additional money. It is a reallocation of $150 million that was originally earmarked for COVID-related relief, and the inflation that we're experiencing is partially related to COVID. So they're just asking for that $150 million to be allocated to the MSBA, because then the MSBA will have the money to allocate to the projects that are in process.
Right, because it's really, you know, it's not, I don't want to sound like it's unfair, but it's unfair that, you know, we're going through this building process in a time of such uncertainty where other, you know, programs who would have gotten the same amount of money didn't have necessarily this amount of uncertainty. And so, you know, trying to maximize what we can put in the building and, you know, meet our obligations to our students and make sure that we have the correct learning environment. I mean, the town voted on, you know, this building, and as a town, we deserve what the, you know, the best that we can get for the money. So really do appreciate Mr. Donnelly writing that letter and then agreeing to let it be a joint endorsement from both the Board of Selectmen and the school committee.
Definitely.
All right, so moving on. We do not have anything, oh wait, no, that's right. We don't have anything under new business. So then we just move straight on to consent agenda.
Yes, we have 2 donations. One is to the high school from Roach Brothers for $50. It is a gift card to be used for game night, either to buy food or to give it as a prize. And then the other one, the Oldham School runs an after-school kids club where they run different classes, and this is money, total of $1,388.52, and that is the money that they are paying teachers and parents for running those programs after school. So that would be a donation specifically for that purpose, so that we could facilitate those stipends.
Any questions on the donations?
Can we separate them out?
Absolutely.
So can I make a motion to approve the $50 for the post-prom at the high school?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so 4-0.
And then if I can make a second motion to accept the donation from the Oldham PTO for the teacher stipends of $1,388.52, but designate this donation as a restricted donation to pay the stipends.
Great. So moved. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sheridan, that's the language you need it, right? Okay.
No, I appreciate that. So, you know, just for the public's awareness, just to make sure that that money is specifically earmarked and cannot be used for anything else except to pay for those teacher stipends. Okay, so that brings us to our school committee addenda. And I'll start at the end. Teresa?
Yes, let me find it. I wrote something. Okay, so I wanted to share a few candid thoughts tonight, and I apologize in advance because, as always, brevity is not my art form. I'm honest. I said candid.
Yeah, that was understated right there, but that's all right.
So tonight I sit in this chair in a very different situation than I have been before, with uncertainty if I will be back or not at the next school committee meeting. 6 years ago, I was sitting in this room, in the audience, awaiting election night, initially on April 3rd, 2017. I was watching the school committee at that time work on the final stages of hiring a new superintendent, Dr. Thompson.
Not so new anymore.
And working on a problematic FY18 budget. It is safe to say that 6 years ago, I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. Sorry, I'm starting to over the last 6 years, I have dived extremely deeply into the work of the district, and in many ways, the collaborative work of the town, too. There has not been a single task asked of me that I didn't readily say yes to. And if anything, I have probably raised my hand too often and took on too much work. but that is simply who I am in every aspect of my life. I work hard, I care deeply, and when I commit to something, I fully commit. 3 years ago, I ran for re-election during the pandemic. To be fair, I made that decision in February 2020 before we knew that there was a pandemic. So I didn't necessarily decide to run again during the pandemic, but I did decide to remain the chair at that time of the school committee for 3 years and help navigate the district through some of the most challenging times. I knew some of what I was getting myself into in 2020: budget, policy, advocacy, the middle school building project, the strategic planning. I knew I was saying yes to all of that, but I had no way of knowing what the rest of 2020, all of 2021, and most of 2022 would present us with. It has been challenging, which is an understatement. But it has been challenging, and so far 2023 continues to present trends and situations that public education has never previously experienced. When I needed to decide if I was going to run again for a third term, I spent some time contemplating and talking with my family and my trusted colleagues. To be honest, there are pros and cons to being an elected official at the local level, and the impact of this work to my family is significant. My family sacrifices every single day. But when I really reflected and listened to my inner voice, it was a resounding yes. I wasn't yet done with this very important work, and I felt I had more to give. I'm not going to jinx any of us by saying I know what I would be getting myself into, because there's always surprises and challenges around the corner. But I feel confident that no matter what it is, I have the skill set and the dedication this district needs to keep us moving forward, to keep us grounded in our whys, and most importantly, to keep us focused on student achievement. I want to share briefly tonight my why over the last 6 years and my why for wanting to continue. My why is multi-layered. First, I have the utmost respect for public education and educators. I can't thank those who decide to teach enough. In Norwood, we really do have a dedicated staff in all of our schools and in all of our departments. One of my most honored moments from when I was chair was speaking to staff at convocations to show my appreciation and respect for them. Second, I believe that all children can learn. I believe that all children deserve to be in safe and supportive schools. I believe that all children have strengths. I believe all children have a right to public education in a way in which they each can access the curriculum. Lastly, Norwood is my home, and it has been since 2007. My children attend our schools. For the last 11 years, I have been a parent in this district. I care. I care deeply about what happens in our school and in our town. My father has always told me, do what's right and work hard for what you believe in. And my grandmothers, bless their souls, I miss them dearly, were models for me in what love in action looks like, not only for my family, but for my community. I've served for 6 years on the school committee, and I want to serve for 3 more. I'm proud of the work I've invested so far, and I am confident I can continue to support our students, staff, and community. I thank all of the administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, staff members who I've had the utmost privilege to work with over the last 6 years. I have so much respect for everybody in this room, my colleagues on the school committee. I truly hope to continue on in this role. I truly hope I'm still in this seat on April 12th. But regardless of what happens on April 3rd, you can guarantee that I'll continue to advocate on behalf of our schools and our students. So thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Kate, do you have anything this evening?
I don't really, just to encourage everyone to vote. It is everyone's right and privilege. And so just consider that invitation as your sort of obligation to the town. And I want to congratulate the cast of, I think was it Ash and Flame?
Ash to Flame.
Ash to Flame. That's really exciting. And I'm excited that our students have creative outlets to sort of develop their whole character in our school system. And that's it. Thanks.
Hi, Joan.
Well, Joan.
Welcome.
Apologies.
So glad your flight landed.
My flight was delayed.
Any school
Apologies.
committee attended today?
I have no school committee agenda this evening. No. Excellent meeting. Great meeting. Best I've been to in a while.
Yeah.
Fastest one you've ever attended.
Fastest one I've ever attended.
We still have executive session. You can get out of that.
David, anything tonight?
I do not.
Fabulous. So I did not write anything, and I am usually brief, so this is why Teresa and I are quite good together. But as you all know, it could quite possibly be my last meeting as well. We don't know what is going to happen next week. I do certainly hope that I will be back after the April 3rd election. When I chose to run 3 years ago, I also did not know it was going to be a pandemic. It was quite the roller coaster. It was a decision I made not lightly, especially given the amount of work that needs to go into a committee like this. And then it was just made all the more special finding out the next month that schools were shut down. And elections were delayed, and it was just kind of a really crazy roller coaster. I spent my entire first year trying to learn school committee 100% remotely. For those of you who remember, I overlapped for 1 year with David Catania, and I never met him in person until he was out of the school committee because we were all, doing this from the comfort of our offices. I actually had to recreate my office because it was a disaster, and you couldn't see that on camera twice to two to three times a month. That would have been no good. But the work has been so rewarding. It has been something I really have enjoyed through all of its ups and downs. It was challenging in a way that, I really kept wanting to do more. I second Teresa's, comment about the sacrifices of our families. We both have full-time jobs. I kind of half joked that when I came to this meeting before we started today that I literally got home from work 20 minutes ago. I did, peeled in on 2 wheels, dropped my work stuff at home, grabbed my school committee stuff, and came straight here. And kind of 2 ships passing in the night with my family. It is definitely a sacrifice that my family knows is worth it. They see it, they know it, and they fully support me going out and doing it. It has not been easy. There have been plenty of, grumpy, school committee again, because we really do have a lot of things that we take care of. There are a lot of subcommittees. There's a lot of background work. There's a lot of emails, a lot of meetings and phone calls and things like that. Do we ever all really know what we're getting into when we do something like this? But 3 years in, I feel like I'm really on a roll now, and I know what I'm doing, and I really want to continue to work for this district and to help move it forward and to make it the best district it can be. Not to play that card, but I was a student here. My public school education in Norwood was wonderful, and I was able to use it as a springboard to go forward and into my career as a scientist. And I've had a very good career, and it's, in no small part to the teachers, the educators, everybody that I met along the way in the Norwood Public School system. And so I'd love to see what this becomes from the inside, not just from the outside looking in. Hopefully this is not the last meeting I will be sitting in this chair. Okay, so having said that, I was the last one. Unfortunately, we need to go into executive session for the purpose of discussion of legal matters. So, can I please, I will please entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Teresa. And do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kate. She keeps beating you to it. Unfortunately, I need to poll, not unfortunately, I need to poll individually. So Teresa?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. that we will only, sorry, that concludes our public portion. We will only reconvene for the purpose of adjournment. We want to thank you very much this evening for joining us. We will be back again. Actually, we will be at the Callahan on April 12th for our April 12th meeting at 7 p.m. And thank you as always for joining us. And good night.